Hey guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please support this podcast by going to talkmurder.com/join and becoming a Taco Supremo. Hello, John, Jen, and Nicole. Kristen here. I'm a new Taco Supremo, though I've listened for a few years now, so I guess I would consider myself a Taco OG. So anyways, the word that us true crime lovers always hear thrown around is prolific. So-and-so serial killer is the most prolific of all time, yada yada yada. Well, how come none, nope, not one, of my favorite true crime podcasts have yet covered this ultimate angel of death, Charles Cullen? You want to talk prolific? This guy is batting 400. Anyways, like I said, you guys are my favorite podcasts, and I'm so glad that I finally became a Taco Supremo. Your biggest and most obsessed fan, Kristen. Yes, Kristen. I know we're doing your story. That's about all I know. Kristen up in New York. And the hint that she gave us this evening was intravenous.
Oh.
And so, obviously, when you type in intravenous cocktail into Google, you get some things that we're obviously not going to do here.
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, there's one intravenous thing that is apparently very common. It's called the Meyer cocktail, or the Meyer intravenous cocktail or whatever. And it's like an injection of like vitamins and whatevers. So,
I thought you were talking about something sexual.
No, intravenous.
I thought you were talking about boofing.
Where are we? I mean, I guess we could do boofing, but
We should all boof a drink once.
Can Jen and I put up our hoo-ha instead of our butt?
No, I don't want to boof. I just like the word.
No, I would. I mean, I wouldn't put anything up my butt. So the Meyer cocktail is what came up for intravenous things. And so it made me think of Meyer lemons.
Like in the soap.
Yeah. So Meyer lemons are like lemony, but also kind of have like an orangey taste. So I took some lemon juice, a little bit of orange juice, some sugar, and vodka, and voila, we have our Meyer martini.
Did you make this up yourself?
Yeah.
It's delicious.
It's too bitter.
And
do you want more sugar?
That's funny because...
Is that going to make it not bitter?
It's going to make it not as... like pure lemon juice.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I didn't know that there was more than one kind of lemon.
Yeah, Meyer lemons, they taste a little different.
And just like there are different kinds of banana.
You mean like plantain?
No, like there were different species of bananas.
There are blue bananas, which apparently taste like vanilla.
Huh. I've seen purple bananas.
So tonight we have a request from one of our good friends and Taco Supremos, Kristen.
Oh, hey, Kristen.
From New York. Kristen's relatively new, right?
Yeah.
She's a new joiner.
We do have a new Supremo. She's from California. She requests not to get a shout out. But, you know.
Well, that's okay. Thanks for supporting us.
Yeah, thanks for supporting us.
Hey, new taco.
I think she's an undercover agent.
Oh, well, that's badass.
No, she's actually a nurse.
Oh. Also cool.
But that could be a cover story, you know?
It very well could be.
Yeah, I guess.
Anything could be a cover story. Mm-hmm. So, with the hint being intravenous, I think this is kind of like the
Deacon of Death?
Yeah, the nurse one though.
Elizabeth Wetlaufer.
Yes. I think this is a nurse murderer story, and this takes place in, I'm going to say 1988, and I think we're going to New York.
Okay, I think that we're talking about someone who has a drug problem, and the victims are drug addicts.
Ooh.
Oh, like a heroin needle.
Yeah. Surprise shots. Surprise shots. We don't know what they are because they're a surprise.
Oh, God damn it. What is this? And why is it such a big shot
glass? It's called a surprise. This is what I have.
Did you mix a whole bunch of shit together? That tasted like something that...
Ugh, that's like cough medicine.
No, it was worse than cough medicine. Was that the current liquor?
It was. It wasn't that terrible. It tasted very sugary.
So tonight we are doing a very special story for our supporter, Kristen. Thank you so much for requesting this. This is an Angel of Death story, like Nicole guessed.
Yes.
So if you guys don't know, or if you're new to murder, an Angel of Death is someone that works in the medical field that kills their patients. And I think we've done only 2 Angel of Death stories before. We've done Elizabeth Wetlaufer from Canada, obviously.
Yep.
And
Obviously.
and we done a Belgian guy named Yves Pope, and he's from Belgium. And
That was a great case.
That was good, yeah.
yeah, so the Angel of Death cases aren't as popular as, the Dahmer eating faces off type of cases, but they are really interesting. And does anyone want to take a guess before we get started how many victims this guy has? And his name is Charles Cullen.
Ooh, Cullen?
Cullen.
56.
Like the vampire.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a vampire?
Like in the Twilight.
Like Twilight.
Oh,
Edward Cullen. Like the vampire.
that's
duh.
not a real
Yeah.
vampire.
What other vampire do you know of aside from the Japan story that we just covered?
How about Dracula? Are you serious?
Okay, but
Bram
did you know
Stoker?
his last name was Cullen? No. Anyway, I think I'm going to go with 146.
So Charles Cullen, the Angel of Death, has reportedly killed up to 4
Ooh.
people. I'm just kidding. It's 400.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, shit.
He has reportedly killed up to 400 people, even though he's only admitted to 30 or 40 of those. But the author of the book we're reading tonight, which is a fantastic book, is called The Good Nurse.
Is
And-
it just me, or is it that anytime you think of a male nurse, you think of
Meet the
Fockers or Meet the Parents? Yeah.
The parents. I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
So
Still my favorite line from that movie.
Hey, this is Greg. Remember we talked about him? Hey. Sorry, Greg. The car only comes in one gender.
Oh, yeah, no, that's all right.
the author, Charles Graeber, spent 7 years writing this book. It's a fantastic book. I love his writing style. But he estimates that it is up to 400 people.
How many do you think?
I would be very surprised, as would pretty much everyone I've spoken to with any knowledge of this case, if it was not in the hundreds, multiple hundreds.
So has anybody here heard of Charles Cullen?
No.
Cullen. So when I first saw this photo right here that you're looking at, I thought that this was an actual movie. Tell me this doesn't look like an actual movie.
Yeah, that's not a movie.
Yeah.
No, it's not a movie. That's him getting interviewed in jail.
Oh.
But doesn't it look like he's in an actual movie?
Yeah, it looks like he is playing the role of his fucking life right now. He's acting the shit out of
He's
this
playing
phone call.
a Liam Neeson
Yeah.
role right there.
Dude, I saw that and I was like, what movie is this? And then I was like, wow, this is like a real interview. You'll see some of that interview tonight. So if you're listening to this and you're new here, I'll put all the pictures, videos, and media on talkmurder.com. So we're starting off on June 14th.
That guy looks like Hannibal.
Oh,
yeah.
he does look like Hannibal.
Yeah,
Hannibal.
Anthony Hopkins.
So this is John Yingo Sr. He was a judge. This newspaper clipping right here is from the Ashbury Park Press, New Jersey. So tonight we're going to New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So this is the first victim that Charles Cullen has killed. Now, as you saw from the Meet the Fockers video, he is an RN, a registered nurse, a male registered nurse. If you want to read some of this clipping.
John W. Yengo, Sr., 72, a lawyer and judge, died Saturday at the St. Barnabas Medical Center, Livingston Township. Mr. Yengo had his own law practice for approximately 40 years here. He served as a Jersey City Municipal Court judge from 1974 to 1976 and was named the Outstanding Citizen by the mayor in 1976. He was a member of the Holy Name Society of St. Aloysius Church. Here was president of Mount Carmel Society and a member for 50 years.
Yeah, so that's the first victim. So in this story and all the other Angel of Death stories, it's really hard to get into the details of the actual murder because they all die pretty much the same depending on what drug is given. So Elizabeth Wetlaufer, the Canadian nurse, she would give insulin. The guy that we did, Ivo Pope from Belgium, he did air. So this guy, Charles Cullen, that has killed 400 people, used a variety of weapons, the first being lidocaine. So he killed this judge, Yingo Sr., with lidocaine. Very first thing. Now we're going to get back to why he did it, but this was in 1988. This is way before they knew that they had a serial killer on his hands. I mean, this guy, this is one of 400. So the paper here says nothing about all the suspicious circumstances or anything. It was just natural causes. All right, so before we get started, I want to say I'm not a medical professional in any way. I may say some stuff that's wrong. I am bringing one of our friends. He's a pharmacist, Will the Pill. He is the host of the Quackery podcast that you can find. He's going to help me with all these medicines and stuff like that so I don't screw it up. But there's a few different ways he was killing patients. First is lidocaine. Then he moved to digoxin, which we're going to talk about. That was his main weapon, which no other nurse that I have done a story on or know use that to kill people. Also insulin, which is what I feel like most Angel of Deaths would use to kill people. And some other stuff as well. So Charles Cullen killed 400 people over a total of 16 years. He goes through dozens of complaints, dozens of disciplinary citations, four separate police investigations.
What?
2 lie detector tests, which he passes both, and I'm going to tell you how he passed them both, is by taking a certain cocktail of medications, which is pretty smart. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that.
Oh, God.
For real.
Excellent. You never know when that might come in handy.
Right?
At least 20 personal suicide attempts, numerous long stays in psychiatric wards, months or more, sometimes up to 6 months. He's worked in 9 different hospitals and 1 nursing home. All of
That's like the worst place to put him.
Yeah, all of which he was either fired from or, quote, asked to resign. So 400 people in 16 years.
That's 40 people a year, isn't it?
The age range is from 21 years old.
Whoa.
Yeah, to 82, I believe. I mean, way up there.
I'm surprised that he is targeting people so young.
Oh, yeah, he'll kill anyone. This guy will kill anyone.
But it amazingly, I mean, for the number of times that where he has like investigations, terminations,
yeah.
people clearly knew he was doing something.
So how did he keep getting hired?
Right.
That's the road I want to go down tonight because he worked at 9 different hospitals before they got him.
Seems very long overdue.
And the book we're reading from tonight is called The Good Nurse, and it's appropriately titled because Charles Cullen was easy to schedule. He could work nights. He could work weekends or holidays, and he has no responsibilities. Basically, he's a good hire. And
well, except when you look at his work history and that he has had 9 different employers.
So we're going to start from his childhood. This is a little picture of him as a little tot there. He was born in West Orange, New Jersey, February 22nd, 1960. He was number 8 out of 8, and he was the last one to be born. Very poor family. From all the accounts I've seen, the mother did her best to shield him because he was the runt of the litter, if you will. He was born last. He was scrawny. He was always picked on. His brothers were heavy drug addicts, his older brothers, and his sisters were in and out of pregnancies all the time. They were always getting pregnant. The abusive boyfriends would come over and stay at the house. Even when the sister had broken up with the boyfriend and moved out on her own, the abusive ex-boyfriend would still stay in the shitty-ass house in West Orange, New Jersey. His father died when he was 7 months old. But before he died, he made sure to tell his son that he was a, quote, pregnancy mistake.
Oh, gosh.
At age 8, he tries to poison one of the abusive boyfriends. by putting lighter fluid in this guy's cocktail.
Wow.
Which is kind of like a sign of things to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, his mom seemed to care a lot about Charlie, but think about it. You got 8 kids. You're all in abject poverty. There is no way out. There's drugs. I mean, they're in the slums. West Orange, New Jersey. They're in the slums. There is no hope at all. Not only that, when Charlie was 17 years old, and I'm going to get a little bit into how he was bullied in high school, but his mother died in a car wreck when he was 17 years old. And now this is the last anchor to humanity this guy has, right, is his mother.
And she was the one that was sticking up for him.
Yeah, the only one that was
him.
sticking up for him. She dies in a car wreck. He was so distraught at the hospital, which was Mountainside Hospital, because they kind of whisked the body away. They didn't let him see his mother's body, stuff like that. So he was very upset with the hospital, which was the Mountainside Hospital, which is still there today. And not only that, when Charlie eventually decides to go to nursing school, he decided to go to Mountainside, where his mother was officially, coded, if you will.
Right.
But when he was in school, he didn't know he was going to go to nursing school yet. But he was actually extremely intelligent. At 15, he was reading some pretty heavy philosophy books. His favorite was Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, Theodore Dostoevsky. I've never read it, but he has written a lot of books, and they're very heavy philosophy books. Charlie had absolutely no friends in high school. He was beat up. He was bullied. I saw one source that he did make it to one high school party, but he poisons the punch bowl. He poisons the punch bowl with rat poison.
Oh my gosh.
And luckily, no one died, but that's just another... I mean...
He's trying to kill everybody at the party.
If hindsight's 2020, dude, this guy... You could go back and be like, yep, this dude's going to be a nurse, and he's going to try to poison everybody. He's poisoned his sister's abusive boyfriend.
Not that he didn't deserve it.
And he poisoned the entire high school.
Yeah, that's definitely crazy.
The jocks. And not only that, when he was 9 years old, he tried to kill himself. He took a chemistry set and mixed all the chemicals together and drank it.
What?
That was his first time trying to commit suicide.
Wow. Poor kid.
Charlie did start to make something of himself. He joins the Navy. He actually dropped out of high school, which I said he was a good student. But he dropped out of high school because of the abuse and the bullying he was receiving. He joins the Navy.
Was there a reason why they were bullying him? He was just a scrawny...
He was scrawny, and you'll see, he's a weirdo, man. He's like really weird, like creepy weird. Kind of like me. I'm just like so creepy. But I'm good looking, so people kind of look past that.
I did.
He was in the Navy on the USS Woodrow Wilson, where he was assigned to guarding nuclear warheads, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah, that seems like not a good combination. He's got the key to the code.
Yeah. But one story he did tell one of his friends later when he was a nurse is that they had taken his rifle away, and he had to guard the missiles with a billy club. Like
wow.
Oh, like the cops have?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's going to do a lot of good.
He was known as Charlie Fishbelly. Not only was he bullied in high school real bad, he was bullied a lot worse in the Navy.
Yeah. He should have known that maybe the armed services would not be a safe place for him.
Yeah. No shit. I mean, we would have
granted,
had
it could
a
have
towel party with this guy.
Oh my God, no.
It could have straightened him up, and made him tougher, but yeah.
Well, in the Navy, not straighten him up, more like bending him over.
Oh my God. Hey.
Shit. He was getting bullied so bad that he turned to alcohol, a lot of it. And this is when he first finds out that he could fake a suicide. And remember when I said earlier that he has over 20 suicide attempts? Well, none of those he actually wanted to kill himself. Well, maybe like one or two, but most of them, he just wanted to go into this really nice psych ward, and
Have people take care of him
have
for a
people
while.
take care of him for 3 months. So, and he's a nurse, so he knows how much to take before he hits that, that bell curve of killing himself. So he took just enough all the time. That's how he's got so many.
Wow.
And he noticed that he gets sympathy when he does that, because if you try to kill yourself, then people will be like sympathetic.
Extra nice, yeah.
Extra nice to you. All right, so let's just say he's had a shitty run in life already. In June of 1987, he graduates Mountainside Nursing School, and he gets a job right off the bat at St. Barnabas Medical Center. Now, this is where he kills his first patient, and this hardly never happens from what I saw. But a brand new nurse, straight out of nursing school, usually does not go to the burn center where, victims are burned, third degree, second degree, car wrecks, whatever, campfires, whatever. That doesn't happen because, as I was reading in this book, the burn ward, according to all the other nurses there, is also referred to as the, quote, scream ward. And
It's just not for inexperienced people.
No, it's just really brutal. And you'll hear him say it in a second, but he kind of started to blame his killings on seeing all these, because a lot of people die from the burn center. If you want to go ahead and read this, this is what Charlie's job was at the burn center. This is from the book, The Good Nurse.
Charlie's job was to clean these burn victims on a metal gurney, to scrape and wash away the charred, necrotic skin with antibacterial soap. Even within the field of critical care medicine, this is almost unimaginably gruesome procedure. As a first job straight out of nursing school, it's something close to hell.
Yeah, so in the book, it gets pretty in detail about the burn victims. But it was interesting because the nurses have what they call the rule of nines. So this is to determine a mortality rate. Now, this isn't in the textbooks or whatever, but this is how they do things and their dark humor, But you basically count each body part as a 9 if it's burned really badly. Like, let's say your right leg is a 9. Your left leg is a 9. Your back is a 9. Okay. And then your arms are fine, so you don't count them or whatever. Then you take that and you sum it to the person's age, and then that number equals the mortality rate.
So the likelihood that they'll die?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how they do things there.
Yeah.
Like there was a 21-year-old, I think he was 21 or 22 or something like that. He was in a fatal car crash, and he was locked in the car after it crashed, and he burned until they finally got him out. He died, but he was like when he was 21 years old, but he's burned completely all through his body. So they were talking about that in the book. If you want to read this.
Burn victims are connected to machines, lines snaked into wrists and femoral arteries. Plastic tubes shoehorned into holes top and bottom, saline, electrolytes, pain meds, anxiety meds, liquefied food. The body swells with fluids, sometimes doubling in size. The scrotum inflates like a beach ball. The eyes puff to slits. The lips balloon and break like overcooked sausages. The body swells against the skin until the patient is as hard as carved marble. The blood vessels are squeezed shut. The core begins to die.
Ooh. Did you ever read the book Joel?
No.
It was one of our summer reading books when I was in high school. I think it was like my freshman year. It was about this kid who got into a car accident and he was burned over, I think, 60% of his body, like third-degree burns. And they were going to try to get him to speak at our high school. Yeah, it was a great book to read as a freshman, like 8th grader going into 9th grade as a freshman. But he was from New Hampshire, or it happened in New Hampshire, the car accident.
I worked on the burn unit, so, there was a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And I didn't cope with that as well as I thought I would.
And that was the first place that you gave someone medication that caused them to die.
So that right there was the only interview he's ever given any media source. That was 60 Minutes. And the interview with Charles Cullen inside of his jail cell there. But yeah, he's talking about the burn center. And as you'll see, if you watch this interview, I'm going to put it on talkmore.com. And I noticed this with other angel of deaths too. They don't want to take responsibility. They're not going to straight out say they're a serial killer, a psychopath, or whatever. Most of them are going to say that they were helping the victims in suffering and stuff like that. And that's why they're called angel of death, I guess. But he's the same way. So if you watch the interview, he'll talk about the burn center and how that kind of molded his mind to, want to kill.
Well, even right there in that clip, he was saying there was a lot of pain and suffering and I didn't cope with it well, which it was kind of him taking responsibility, but not at the same time.
Yeah.
It's an excuse for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 year later, after he went to the burn center, he killed that judge for the first time. He gave him lidocaine. But 1987, he's out of med school and he's at the burn center and it's gruesome as shit. Yeah, but this is the best time of his life because he meets a girl, a computer programmer named Adrian, and they become husband and wife. She eventually gives him 2 daughters. It should be the perfect time for him. I mean, he's got a really good job, even though it's kind of brutal, and he's got a wife and she's pregnant and all this stuff. It should be a happy time, but it wasn't. And he started pulling away from his marriage and from his kids and from his responsibilities.
And I'm sure you're going to get into this, but I am curious if he was aware, like a judge is a very high profile person. I mean, I know that he's 72 when he's murdered. It almost makes you wonder, like, is he targeting certain people, or are they totally random?
All right, that's a really good question, and I was going to kind of get into that later. From what I have seen, is very impersonal. So
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's
who he feels he can get away with.
Well, not even that. Not even that, because this guy, since the first murder of that judge, he was thinking in his head, all right, when's the cops coming? Like, when are they going to come get me? Like, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't covering his tracks at all. And 400 people, like, come on. This guy would kill to relieve the stress. So it didn't matter if the victim was male, female, young or old. It didn't matter. It was just, okay, I think I can kill this guy or this girl. I don't think I'm not going to get caught or whatever. But he didn't try too hard not to get caught, as you'll find out.
Right. I'm just wondering where the line is. I mean, obviously he was murdering people, but where is the line where you when they got enough evidence to say that it was murder as opposed to medical malpractice?
Well, you're going to see, because it's 2 different things. Malpractice is like, oh, shit.
Accidental.
Accidental, like, fuck, I chopped his left arm off instead of his right arm.
But, I mean, he was in the perfect field for someone, for a serial killer, because you can almost be like, oh, well, shoot, I didn't mean to
but
do
giving
that.
someone insulin when they're not diabetic and a large dose to kill them is murder. Giving someone insulin a little dose by mistake, oh, fuck, I thought he was diabetic or whatever, that's one thing. But, I mean, he would spike these bags.
Probably the volume of it, too.
The volume, dude. And he'd put people in comas.
Oh, shit.
Like, all the time. And he would do it, too, right when he leaves for the night shift. Right when he leaves
time
work.
To go home.
Yeah, he's like, time to go get some sleep. And he would spike the bag.
Oh, my gosh.
It, like, helped him sleep better.
Oh, my gosh.
At night or something. Knowing that they were going comatose. His wife gets pregnant with his first daughter February 1988. It should be a grand time, but he starts pulling away, and he's down in the basement, which is like the basement from Home Alone. That's kind of how I picture. The basement with the heater that's like, you remember that? He's down there. There's like no lights down there at all, and he's down in this sulky basement getting drunk and trying to hide it from his wife. Eventually, he just doesn't care, and he just goes in the basement and gets hammered all the time.
Does he go into work drunk?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's always drunk. And the wife found out, and I actually put this in notes because I thought this kind of cool little quote. Love can't compete with death. So, people like police officers or nurses or whatever, they see death all the time. Love can't compete with that. Anyway, he becomes really distant as a husband and a father. And she'll tell the divorce courts and her attorney that he's almost treating her like another one of his patients. You know, just kind of not even looking at her, stuff like that. She began to get really worried when the puppy disappeared, and Charlie didn't care. He most likely killed it. But they had 2 Yorkshire Terriers. One of them disappeared, a.k.a. he killed it. But he was torturing them before that. He would throw them outside in the dumpsters, and the wife would go out there and find the dogs in those big dumpsters.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
That would be the straw for me, man.
Yeah, because she has 2 kids now, man. Another time, Adrian remembers coming home, and the door is slightly ajar, and he's not home. He actually went out, but the baby's there.
What?
So no one was at home. She confronts him about it because she's pissed. And he says, quote, "The baby wouldn't wake up anyway," which means he most likely gave the baby what they call in the biz a liquid babysitter. Basically knocked it out with some whatever, fucking Robitussin or whatever.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm assuming she divorces his ass.
Yeah, she does. And I'm going to show you the divorce proceedings here in a second. We're going to kind of roll through it right quick. But if you want to read this.
Charlie was spending most of his time in the basement. She'd tried going down there a few times. She was afraid to try again. Finding him in the half-dark, she had seen something disturbing about her husband's eyes. Adrian didn't quite know how to describe it. A cool blankness, a look that belied any feelings of love she might have imagined her husband still harbored for her. Sometimes Charlie's eyes would drift apart, watching 2 separate directions, as if each eye belonged to a separate being.
Whoa.
The neighbor's dog eventually disappears too. It's like a little poodle thing.
Uh-oh.
He definitely killed that thing. So, like I said at the beginning, he started faking suicide attempts. And he did this a lot, actually. He would actually wait till his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, was walking into the kitchen, and he would flop himself on the floor, start foaming at the mouth, his tongue's out, and then there's a bottle of pills. She eventually got so sick of it that she would, step over him.
Oh.
And, she picked up the pills, and the book says, crouching on the rug, picking up the pills one by one, and placing each carefully back in the bottle. So he does this multiple times, and in several of the police...
I was gonna say, you know what would have been really just savage? So he, plans out how much he needs to take if she just,
added some more.
Here's 5 more. There you go. Let's just finish that job for you.
God, that'd be terrible.
So he would actually go to the police interviews, and he would take the pills, and he would time them. So when he's in the interview, he would collapse on the floor and start seizing and all this shit.
He's like an actor.
So he would constantly go to the psych wards. Now, this was when he was a nurse and going from hospital to hospital, which I'm about to talk about in a second.
I tried to kill myself throughout my life because I never really liked being who I was. Because I didn't think I was worthy of anything.
Boo!
So that was a police interrogation of Charlie Cullen. And that's when he admitted to all this stuff. But I'm going to put that on talkmurder.com. Let's get on to his jobs, shall we? Enough talking about this guy. Let's get on to his 9 hospitals he worked at. St. Barnabas Hospital, 1991. This is when he started using insulin to kill patients. And a lot of them. I mean, this guy admitted to 40, but there's probably upwards of 400.
That's
okay.
Wild.
It's so intense. Anyway, from my research, insulin acts like a volume control or a thermostat. If your blood sugar is really low, take glucose. So if a diabetic has low blood sugar and he's in the hospital, they'll usually give him orange juice that raises his blood sugar up. Kind of makes it normal. But if the blood sugar gets too high, they give them insulin and it lowers it back down.
Right.
So they try to keep them at this happy balance. Now, if the patient is not diabetic whatsoever, or if, for instance, Charles Cullen is working the night shift and now 20 of your patients who were not diabetic are now instant diabetics because he injects them all with insulin, this is kind of what happens. It's a roller coaster effect. Cold sweat, confusion, nausea, and shaking real bad. Okay.
So this is what happens when you give insulin
This
to
is
a
what happens,
non-diabetic.
yeah. This is what happens when someone is overdosed with insulin. If the blood sugar is too low, they'll give them orange juice. If that doesn't work, they'll give them an IV of dextrose. All right, this is from the book right here. Quote, for months, codes being like,
Code red or blue.
Yeah.
kind of thing. For months, codes had become so frequent that they overlapped. The CCU, which is the critical care unit, nurses would need to leave one to attend another. The information was anecdotal and confusing. The incidents weren't confined to any one unit or any one shift, but across the intensive care, critical care, and cardiac units. St. Barnabas patients were magically becoming instant diabetics. It's kind of interesting because the use of insulin as a weapon, if you will, was first studied by the Nazis. Like Mengele and all these people, they were using insulin, and that's how we get all of our statistics today. Like how much insulin before someone dies is because of the Nazi documents.
Wow!
Because they figured out the bell curve on which someone has just the right amount to when they go comatose and die. It was the Nazis that did that. Kind of interesting.
Yeah,
when
that
they were
is
doing all the
interesting.
human experiments.
Yeah. The human, like Mengele or whatever, which I want to cover that guy. This is in 1991. He started practicing in 1987. This is only 3 years later. He's already killed, some people. But St. Barnabas approaches him. This is only 3 years. He's killed people for 16 years. And they said, now the police were involved. Quote, we know you're putting something in the bags. And Charles Cullen responded, quote, you can't prove it. Okay.
Wow, that's a ballsy response. He'd been spiking bags at random sometimes, sending them out like grenades. Charlie was certain that his fingerprints were all over the tainted IV bags. He hadn't bothered to wear gloves. He figured that if they wanted him, they had him. And they could have had him.
They accused him of killing multiple patients at this point. This is like the first hospital that has accused him. Do you know how they solved the problem?
No, how?
Just firing him.
They didn't fire him. They stopped calling him in for shifts. That is how they responded.
They just stopped scheduling him?
Yes.
Wow.
This is from the 60 Minutes interview. This is the author of the book talking.
He was the main suspect for poisoning random bags of saline. If you talk to the investigators there, they'll tell you, Cullen was our man, we knew he was dirty. They couldn't prove anything. It's all circumstantial.
They could have.
He moved on.
Well, insulin...
But they could have
Yeah, but they can't
done the
prove
fingerprints.
This is
just like you said. Like everyone's fingerprints may have it on the bags.
But Charlie would get there early and stock the medicine. Yeah, the fingerprints, everyone's fingerprints. He's a stalker. Now, how he did it is spike the bags. Obviously, you take a syringe, boom. There's this thing called the piggyback on the IV bag. Now, I'm not a nurse or anything, but it's like a little extra line which you can put medicine in. So he'd use that, or sometimes he would just spike it right into the bag itself. Like he didn't care. But they definitely knew that the bags were spiked because they took the bags and under a microscope you can see the actual marks in the bag. Okay. Now this is before the computer system that they had. I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Nurse Jackie.
No.
That's a great show. It's on Netflix. It's about this nurse. Obviously, her name is Jackie, and it's about her daily life, but she's also like addicted to Vicodin and all kinds of shit, right? It's really good. But anyway, if you watch that show, you'll see what they call the Pyrex system. I believe that's what it's called, but it's like a computerized vending machine for drugs. if your patient needs insulin, you have to go to this machine, type in your PIN number, it registers that you are getting whatever drug, and then it dispenses it to you. Okay, this is before that. So it was a lot harder for them to prove that he was actually doing it. Like you just read, he was sending these IV bags out like grenades.
Right.
He wasn't going in and hanging them up on the line himself. He was just boom, 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 going down the line, spiking them all. And then the nurses would give that to their patients because they didn't know there was insulin in them. So that's what he started doing. The first murder, like I said, John Yingo, he actually went in there. That was the judge. Severe case of sunburn. That's why he was in there.
Oh my God.
Severe case of sunburn. And he overdoses on lidocaine, which he wasn't even supposed to be getting lidocaine.
Right.
And they knew he did it. They stopped calling him in for shifts. 2 weeks later, he was working at the Warren Hospital at a higher pay rate than his last job, plus a $7,000 sign-up bonus, which is going to become a common theme in this story. He moves from hospital to hospital, and not only do they not check references or take his word for everything, they increase his pay and give him a bigger sign-in bonus.
I hope that the hiring process is different now than it was back then.
No, it is not.
What?
I can promise you it is not.
Well, at least there's stricter rules on the drug dispensing.
As you'll see, that shit doesn't work either.
Oh.
I mean, this is an anomaly, right? You have 99.9% of healthcare professionals doing the right thing. And then you got one like this guy, which... You know, is like a 1%er, right? He kills all the patients. And you know what I'm saying? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
He actually gets fired from Warren Hospital, too. Fired. Well, it's not fired. These hospitals are not like, you're fired.
They ghost them.
No, they either ghost them or they bring them in and say, hey, we'll make you a deal. We'll give you neutral references if you just, quit. Because they don't want him to be like, oh, you fired me and I didn't do anything wrong, type of shit, get any legalities involved or whatever.
Wow.
did,
Those
though.
hospitals are pussies.
Dude.
Seriously.
So he would just be like, okay, because he can go down the road and this dude's making bank because he's getting a $10,000 bonus from each new hospital.
The hospitals are lucky that the families of these people who are dying from these crazy things aren't suing the hospitals. So the fact that they're not even going after him is, I mean, maybe they're trying to draw attention to the fact that there's an issue, but...
Well, it's interesting that they offer the neutral references because I remember when I was working in HR, like we couldn't give really references on character or anything. It was
we can't.
They worked here from this date to this date. That's all we can say.
Same.
So it's, I don't know, different world, I guess.
If you go into a hospital and you look at a doctor or a professional like that, you think he's doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? He's got the experience. You're going to take his word for everything. You know what I'm saying? So, and a lot of times the family was in there, and a lot of them are seniors. So let's say, and this happened a few times, the grandma's in there, and this nurse, Cullen, comes in, and he says, I need to take your grandmother outside, to run some tests. He wasn't going to do any tests. He just wanted to spike her. Oh
my gosh.
But he couldn't do it with the family there because they'd be like, what are you putting in her IV bag, dude? Like, what the fuck is that? So he would take her outside, boom, spike her real quick, sometimes in the bag, sometimes in her body. This one patient that ultimately died, she told her grandson, I believe, or her granddaughter, that this nurse stuck her. And the doctor came in and was like, well, maybe it's a bug bite.
What?
Oh, God. Shouldn't the doctor be trained to know what that is?
Well, that's the thing with these hospitals. They don't want their record to be scarred at all. This is really fucking interesting. So he's fired now from St. Barnabas and Warren Hospital. And if you want to read this, this is freaking from the book. This is literally insane.
When he cradled the phone 5 minutes later, Charlie wanted to laugh. Not out loud, of course. Laughing to oneself was discouraged in a psychiatric facility. But it was funny. The call had been from Warren Hospital, all right. They wanted to know when he was available. As long as a Greystone physician cleared him for work, Charlie was headed back to the night shift.
Oh my gosh.
They called him at the Greystone Psychiatric Care. The hospital called him at a mental hospital and told him to come into work.
Wow. They were desperate.
It's like, dude, whoa, what the fuck? Are you fucking shitting me?
Wow.
They called him at a psych ward and hired him back. It's fucking nuts, dude.
Wow.
Eventually he got terminated at so many hospitals in New Jersey, he simply crossed the Pennsylvania border because the state of Pennsylvania requires a different nursing license, which means a clean start, right? There's no blemishes on that license.
Right.
Huh. On October 1st, Cullen was seen with syringes entering the room of an elderly woman who was not his patient and delivering her drugs that weren't prescribed. A scuffle ensued, and the patient ended up with a broken wrist. Finally, 5 months after Mr. Henry's death, his killer was fired for failure to follow drug protocol. Charlie was the only one on the couch for 2 days before a staffing agency found him nursing work. It was always easy to get extra hours during the holidays.
Yikes.
So some of these neutral references I'm talking about, this is some of the reference from when they found his, when the police went through his sheets. Excellent team player, calm, gentle, always willing to come in for extra shifts.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, he's working in St. Luke Hospital right now, and on June 8th, he was actually escorted to his car by police.
Oof.
A nurse actually filed a police report. Now, this is about 8 years before he's finally caught.
Oh
a
my
nurse files a
God.
police report saying that this nurse, Charles Cullen, is intentionally killing his patients with digoxin and insulin. She filed that report, and it's public. Okay.
So, I mean, how did, even before this, when he had a scuffle with the patient and the patient broke his wrist, how is that not like an assault?
Broke
too?
her wrist. That broke her wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what? Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, what I didn't get into is some of the other arrests Charlie had. Like, he was stalking one of the other nurses, broke into her house, and watched him and her daughter sleep in the bed.
Oh my gosh.
He broke in with a brick right through the window and just watched her sleep.
What the fuck?
And didn't get in any trouble. That was June 8th. He's fired from St. Luke. 10 minutes later, he pulls into Allentown, Pennsylvania for his night shift at the CCU at Sacred Heart Hospital, which he just got a job. 10 minutes after he's fired, he walks out to his car, escorted by 2 police. Now he's going in for his shift at Sacred Heart. Oh. Now, he was fired at Sacred Heart because all the nurses knew that he was doing this, and they threatened to quit en masse if they didn't fire him. That's the only reason he was fired from
Good for them,
Sacred
though.
Heart.
Yeah.
I guess. Better than nothing.
Now, as I said at the beginning, he was actually giving the patients digoxin, which here is our friend Tacos Primo and host of the Quackery podcast. He's a pharmacist. He's probably one of the smartest guys I know. His name is Will. He's going to tell us what digoxin is and how it affects your body.
What is up, tacos? It is your boy here, Dr. Will the Pill. And John reached out to me, and he just wanted me to talk a little bit about a drug here on their episode, digoxin. You'll hear it called Dig by, people at the hospital, sort of a short thing. It's actually classified as a cardiac glycoside. It's really old. It came out, was approved by the FDA in 1954, but it's been around for forever because it's actually derived from the plant foxglove. So it's one that came synthesized naturally from a plant. So obviously cardiac in the name has to do with the heart. It actually helps control rhythm and rate for the heart by using, it kind of controls the potassium and sodium levels inside the heart. And so when taking it at the appropriate dose, it will help maintain a normal heart rhythm and rate for people who, are having irregular heartbeat. Now, I assume in John's episode, somebody is either took too much of it or is giving someone too much of it, which would be a big problem. because obviously when something that's going to control heart rate, you take too much, it's going to completely throw everything out of whack. So you can get what's called digoxin poisoning or toxicity, and really just see a lot of different bad side effects. Blurred vision, vomiting, loss of appetite, confusion. You can actually have color change perception, decreased energy, and of course, it can make your heartbeat way out of whack, either too fast or too slow, which would be a big problem. You can end up having a heart attack and dying. Would not be a very nice way to go. So I'm eager to hear the rest of this episode, guys. And don't forget to check out your other favorite podcast, Quackery, also on the TacoCast Network.
So digoxin basically slows the firing mechanisms of the heart muscles. It's a muscle relaxer for your heart. And that's what he was killing patients with. That was his primary weapon.
Wow. I mean, it's hard to imagine that would be prescribed often in other scenarios, you know?
It's not, but it's more available than, because it's not like a insulin where it's all lock and key or, something that you could really fuck something up with. I mean, this is like just everywhere. It's like from what I found out, it's like a higher dose Tylenol type of shit.
Yeah.
Still but if you give someone enough of it, then they're fucked. All right. Anyway, digoxin, they call it dig, and it is readily available in critical care, which is where he works. Now, this is Charles Cullen talking about digoxin.
Why did you like Ditch?
Ditch, was a very powerful cardiac medication.
What does it do to someone?
In small amounts, it slows the heart rate down. In larger amounts, it can cause what's called complete heart block. And then the heart is very irregular. And, it can cause death. It does cause death in large amounts.
It's kind of unfortunate because I feel that in order to kill someone, you really need to know what you're doing in the medical field. You know what I mean? Like to kill someone intentionally. So it seems like he could have been a great nurse if he was not, killing his patients.
Well, that's a good point. In fact, a lot of the nurses thought he was an excellent nurse, which kind of he was because,
he was
think
so
about
knowledgeable.
it. Well, he was really good at wrapping the bodies too and, sending the bodies off. But not only that, if someone starts to code, Charles Cullen would always know what to give them to reverse it. It's like magic.
He knew what got
think
them
about
there.
it. Yeah, he's the one that got him in the coma in the first place. He knows how to take him out. So the nurses were all like, wow, this guy's so intelligent. Somehow he knew that the heart muscles were slowing down. Like, little did they know, he just injected this guy with digoxin, and now he's like bringing them back up. And these were not, the patients weren't just like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap. They were suffering. Like this was hell for these patients. The insulin thing, what it does, if you don't have the proper amount of glucose, your brain starts eating all you have, and then once it's done, it starts shutting down, and you get brain damage from that. And there was a patient that was without proper glucose levels for 3 hours.
Wow.
And it's supposed to be intense pain and everything else. And he was just suffering because he spiked them,
Wow.
He was also using what's called vecurium bromide. This is from the book, if you want to read about VEC. That's what they call it, VEC.
VEC is an exceptionally powerful paralytic. Overdose by vecuronium bromide would be much like drowning or slow suffocation. The musculature of the body shuts down, but the person inside remains intact, at least until the heart muscles and lungs fail. Worse, the patient would suffer all of it. The VEC would keep you from moving or screaming, but it would not stop you from feeling pain.
That's crazy. You know what that reminds me of? Have y'all seen that movie? I can't remember what it's called, but this guy, he's on an operating table, and the doctors were like the bad guys, and they put him under, like in a coma.
Oh.
And yes, you know what I'm talking about. But he was still awake, but he couldn't move anything at all. He couldn't move any muscle, but he could hear them, saying, all right, at this time we're going to kill this guy. And
I do. Yeah, I can't think of the movie though.
But I mean, how freaking scary as shit would that be? This VEC, when the patient would suffer all of it, the person's insides remain intact at least until the heart muscles and lungs fell. It would keep you from moving or screaming, but it would not stop you from feeling pain. Holy fuck, dude.
Yeah.
So this is what the patients were going through. This, and I'm not going to go down the road of this drug particularly, but the hospital, you guys know what the sharps container is?
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever you use a needle, you throw it in this big bin.
Yep.
It's a sharps container, so you don't reuse needles.
Yep.
Or spread AIDS or stuff like that. So anyway, they started finding medications stuffed down here. Charlie, to get back at the hospital for whatever reason, I mean, he's already killing all the patients, was taking medication, thousands of dollars of it every shift, and shoving it down the sharps box, to throw it away to cost hospital money. Anyway, here's another time when they could have called, hey, everyone stop, we have a killer on the loose, because in one of these sharp boxes was a bunch of this Vicurium bromide. This drug comes in two parts. I cannot remember the word. It comes in a powdered form, and then you take the second part, which is saline, and you mix it into the powder. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It comes in a powder, but it's not the medicine yet. You have to mix it with the other part.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
It's almost like on Resident Evil when you take the green plant and you can mix it with the yellow plant, and it'll be like,
more
the
potent
tube,
or
more
whatever.
potent or whatever. Anyway, they found the VEC in the bottom of the sharps containers, and they had all been mixed together. Like 20 vials of this stuff had been mixed together, and it was missing. Therefore, everyone on the floor that night was poisoned with this Vicrumian bromide. Every one of them.
Wow.
And guess who's not there? Because he just left for the freaking to go home to sleep. Charlie. They knew that this was him. These hospitals knew. And not only that, do you know what these hospitals would do? Like when something like this happens, they don't call the police. They call their lawyer. And you know who talks to Charlie first is the hospital lawyer. Because they want to protect their own own image over the patient's health.
I can just picture Ted from Scrubs.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is not good.
To really drive that point home where they don't care about the patients as much as their own image, this is the medical director for the Somerset Hospital. He didn't know he was being recorded, and this is what he said.
This is a police matter. What we're wrestling with is, throwing the whole in.
Okay, to give you a little context, what you're listening to now is Somerset Hospital. This is when Charlie was finally caught for his crimes. They had 5 patient deaths. Well, they actually had 2, and they didn't do anything. They didn't go to the police or anything. They were doing their own internal investigation. Anyway, 3 more patients died, and a pharmacist actually is the one that called the Poison Control Center in New Jersey and to ask about an insane level a patient had, toxicity levels, and that sparked this guy, Dr. Stephen Marcus, to put his foot up Somerset Hospital's ass, and he actually calls the medical director of the hospital and recorded the phone call without telling him. And this explains perfectly the mindset of these hospitals right here.
This is a police matter. What we're wrestling with is, throwing the whole institution into chaos versus, responsibility to, protect patients from further harm. And
so he says what we're dealing with is trying to wrestle with throwing the image of the hospital, into disarray versus the patient harm, further patient harm. Dude, they could have stopped this guy from killing more people right here. And this is the reason why they didn't, because they're concerned about the hospital's rankings and the, whatever the fuck, who cares?
Harm, and we have been trying to investigate this to get some more information before we made any kind of rush to judgments.
If there is somebody out there that is purposely doing this to individuals at your hospital, we have a legal obligation to report this.
Yep.
Okay.
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 Yeah. The fact that this was going on for 16 years is an embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the multiple hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just that it was one hospital. This is the fault of many, many, many of them. All of them.
Okay, this is the 21-year-old victim. This is the mother talking right here. This is from the 60 Minutes.
My heart, it aches for my son. It bleeds for my son.
We vividly remember Charles Cullen walking into the waiting room. He looked us right in the eye and stated how Michael was gravely ill and people don't make it. And my wife told Cullen, "That's enough. You could leave now." We're haunted by the memory of Charles Cullen coming to the waiting room to get our reaction.
Their 21-year-old son had to get his spleen removed, and now he's dead. Charlie goes into the waiting room, tells them that their son is in grave condition and that he's going to die, just to get the reaction from the parents. Because that it's like Ted Bundy. If you scream and you're all like, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever," then that's how he gets off. So he gets off on going and talking to the patients and telling them that their 21-year-old son who got his spleen removed is now dead. That's how he gets off. And on the interviews, he talks about all this talk about how he wants to help the victims that were suffering.
Oh, please.
It's all bullshit. It's complete horse shit. This guy he's a fucking psychopath monster.
So was this young kid that just died that we saw the mom, was that what kind of brought him into justice? Was that the tipping point?
No, the tipping point was when he worked at Somerset. There were 5 different patients and the investigation started to roll.
I mean, honestly, like when you played the clip of the guy at the hospital talking about like, oh, we kind of want to keep this under wraps, and they said no, it's the obligation of the hospital to report that. Like, that's so true. Like, the hospital is in worse shit if they know about it and they don't report it than if they, you know, like, I know it's a pain going through that investigation, and yeah, it creates chaos, but they get in worse shit if they find out about it, they know about it, and they help cover it up.
Well, here's the thing.
All that is discoverable.
Here's the thing about Somerset. Not only did they offer Charlie a $10,000 bonus and he killed at least 5 of their patients, it took them 3 months after this stuff you heard with the doctor, the medical director, to get all their lawyers in place and everything else. So 3 more people are dead, probably a lot more, while they were doing all this shit, getting everything prepared, and Charlie's killing people. They know it's him. They know it's Charlie, but they're doing their, quote, internal investigation, which turned up nothing. You know what they ended up doing? They got 2 homicide detectives from New Jersey, homicide unit, that, you know, works body cases, street corner cases, drug cases, not drugs like in the hospital. They don't know. They had to get Charles's friend, Amy, the one that eventually got him to confess, to come in and work with them to explain what digoxin and all this shit is. And it took them 2 phone calls. 2 phone calls. All they did was call the past employers and talk to some nurses at the past jobs. And they were like, yeah, he's been killing people.
Wow.
It took them 2 phone calls a day. And this internal investigation that lasted 3 months was nothing. It was them getting their lawyers in order, you know, so they can protect their self-image. And so many other people had died because that shit. That's what the real fucking killer is. These fucking hospitals. I know this guy is, but you know.
Yeah, they let it go on. They enabled him.
One of the 5 patients was this guy named Mr. Strickland. If you want to read this.
Even the most hardened of veteran day nurses say it was truly horrifying. The man thrashing in his bed, the alarm screaming, the family yelling for somebody to please do something. Strickland was now grinding and frothing like he'd bit a live wire, as if his brain temporal lobe had pulsed in spasm. The nurses had pumped Mr. Strickland with glucose all day, but the man kept crashing. Mr. Strickland would survive, at least in body. He'd remain at Somerset. It took 2 weeks before Charles Cullen finally finished Mr. Strickland with a midnight dose of dig.
Isn't that fucking nuts?
That's crazy.
So 2 weeks he was like gunning for this guy. When Somerset found out, oh shit, he's killing people with insulin, he switched to dobutamine, which is like a adrenaline, and he started killing people with that.
Oh, jeez.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, this was in that little vending machine with the meds.
Yep.
How he would do that, and this is how clever he was not. He found out this one thing, that if he would put an order in for, let's say, insulin, which you're not supposed to just draw that out unless you have a patient that needs it, he would put his code in, I want insulin, and then he would cancel the order real quick, but the drawer would already pop open. So he would take it and then shut it, knowing that, oh, it's not going to be on file. But this computer thing recorded everything. And in fact, at Somerset Hospital, while I'm talking about this, they told the detectives, the 2 detectives that were not hospital detectives that actually solved the case, that the machine, the Praxis machine, the vending machine, only stored data up to 30 days. That was a lie. They didn't want the detectives to pull back the records from all the months he's been killing people. They lied to the detectives. That's obstruction.
Shit.
That's obstruction of justice.
Oh, shit.
That's not
Exactly.
Man, deep doo-doo.
So I'm putting their interview on talkmurder.com. It's crazy. These guys, with the help of one of the other nurses, solved the whole case. And the hospital, not only did they let this happen, but they were lying to the detectives because they wanted to cover their ass. Oh, the records are only for 30 days. They went back, infinite. Their computer records is a fucking hard drive. What the fuck? Like, why would they be 30 days? Like, this is fucking medicine,
Wow.
They lied to the detectives. Obstruction of justice. Anyway, let me run through this real quick. So, obviously, Charlie was the main suspect. May 28th, Mr. Joseph Lieben was dead. June 4th, Miss Frances Kane. June 16th, Miss Jin Kyung Han. On June 28th, Reverend Florian Gall, which was one of the big ones that got the ball rolling. On August 27th, Francis Agodia. How they called him is they got a nurse that used to work with him. Her name was Amy Ridgway. That was his best friend, his only friend, that
But
he
she
had.
suspected him.
No, she didn't suspect him. When they approached him, and because the hospital didn't fire him, the detectives had to go arrest him, knowing that it's all circumstantial. Okay, he's killed 400 people. How the fuck, how can you prove that? You can't. This happened for over 13 years. So what they did was they convinced his best friend, Amy Ridgway, to get Charlie to come in and confess and everything else. And if it wasn't for her, he would still be out on the street because it is all circumstantial. You can't really prove that, okay, it was this guy that spiked the needle, because the needles, go into the insulin, go into the bag, then go into the Sparks container or the Sharps container.
Right.
And how, there's 10,000 other Sharps in there. How the fuck, it's literally impossible to do. But if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be behind bars as he is today.
Wow.
He's killed about 400 people, so obviously he's in prison for multiple life terms, but here's the sentencing, a little bit about that.
You are hereby sentenced to New Jersey State Prison to 2 consecutive life sentences, which, with the application of the No Early Release Act, that is NJSA 2C:43-7.2, mandates a period of 85%, or approximately 127 and a half years of parole ineligibility.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can see some of the victim impact statements. I'm putting all those videos on talkmurder.com. It's pretty sad.
Yeah.
They all the families are like, look at this guy real quick. He doesn't, the whole time Charles Cullen is in the courtroom, he doesn't even look up. He doesn't say anything. He's being asked questions. He doesn't say anything. It's really, I don't know what it is, but it's kind of crazy because the victims' families are calling him by his name. Charlie, look at this photo of my father, kind of shit.
About my mother, that you murdered. You don't even have the guts to look this way, do you?
Charles, why don't you look up at us? I'd like to show you what you did to our children. This is their dad in his coffin. How do you like that?
It's crazy. He didn't say a word. He didn't even look up.
Did the hospitals
get in trouble? Fuck no. Are you kidding me?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, so I would imagine the families could file a civil suit against the hospitals and get some compensation.
They probably did, but there was, I mean, as far as someone getting arrested or the...
No, I can't see anyone at the hospital getting arrested, but I could see...
Yeah, they probably got sued out their ass.
Yeah.
I didn't look through all that stuff, but...
I hope they did.
But anyway, that is the Charles Cullen story, The Angel of Death. It's a really hard story to map out as far as the details of each crime. You know, with the victims, we kind of got to say what happens when you overdose on insulin or digoxin, like what's the norm,
right?
You know, because there's no definite records of that. But he did admit to at least 40, and most people think he's killed 400.
Wow.
Which would make him, and everyone says this, the most prolific serial killer of all time. That you hear that word all the time.
Right.
Yeah,
anyway,
a lot of people like to throw that one around.
Yeah, but there is one guy that he did beat. Now, this is before I knew about Charles Cullen. Harold Shipman, he's from the UK, and he's killed 240 or something like that.
In a Dr. Death situation as well?
No, actually, his moniker is Dr. Death, yeah.
What about Dr. Kevorkian? How many people did he kill?
I don't know how many people he killed. I want to do that story. I'm waiting on Will to do that story with me.
Oh, that'd be a good one to do the other guy.
Yeah, because he didn't actually kill anybody.
Oh, well,
he actually let the patients kill themselves.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. But I usually don't do Angel of Death stories, but I did that for you, Kristen. If you want to request a story for me to do, it's simple. Just go to talkmurder.com/join and support this podcast. And it's a one-time payment, and you get a t-shirt, and we talk about you behind your back.
In glowing ways.
Yeah, and you're in our membership, our inner circle for life. So...
It's a cult. Let's be clear. You're paying to be in a cult. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button on whatever podcasting app you use. If you like this story, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're absolutely obsessed with this podcast and want to become our fish belly, go to talkmurder.com/join. Become a Taco Supremo. Get a badass t-shirt, sticker swag, a lot of love, shout it out all over the place. Tell me what story you want me to do. I'll research it, dedicate to you right here on the Talk Murder Me podcast. My name is John, here with Jen and Nicole. Until next time, good night, you lovely, lovely people.